let's move on to Henry II and see what his reign was like. So, Henry II, also known as Kurt Mandel, bit of a strange nickname, lived from the 5th of March 1133 to the 6th of July 1189. He reigned from the 25th of October 1154 to the 6th of July 1189. And Henry II seemed doomed to a life of conflict. Perhaps most famously, Henry became known as the king who killed the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Becket. Becket was Henry's close friend, and the pair worked hard to sort out England's justice system, but when Becket became Archbishop, it all went wrong, and the friends fell out, and Becket ended up dead. Oh my goodness, that sounds like a bit of a drama. So what happened? Henry II, Kurt Mandel. Henry II was the son of Holy Roman Empress Matilda, and while still in his teens took over her fight for the English throne against her cousin Stephen, which we spoke about before. At the age of 21, he became king of the greatest empire any English monarch had held so far: England, Wales, later Ireland, Normandy, Anjou from his father, Brittany, and Antiquitaine from his wife Eleanor of Antiquitaine, and started to repair the damage done by years of civil war. Aquitaine. Henry was a handsome, fierce, passionate, and energetic ruler with a famously ferocious temper. He was always fighting, hunting, studying, or raging. I can think of other things he would be doing as well, but they're not very PG. One of his biggest achievements was to rework England's justice system, making law and order a priority for government in a way that it had never been before. He achieved some of this with the help of his best friend Thomas Becket, who started off as Henry's chancellor. Henry then decided he wanted to change things in the church, and so appointed Becket as the new Archbishop of Canterbury. He obviously assumed his friend would help him get his way, but Becket didn't behave as Henry expected at all, however. He gave up all his riches from his days as Chancellor and became a stubborn defender of the church. Henry could hardly believe it, I can say. Wow. The two men began to argue about all sorts of issues. Henry wanted to control the church. The new archbishop disagreed and punished any priests who sided with the king. Henry became furious at his former friend's disloyalty and, in a fit of rage, apparently cried out, "Will no one rid me of this troublesome priest?" 4 of Henry's knights, eager to win favour with the king, rode off to Canterbury and murdered Becket in his cathedral. Henry was horrified to discover the consequence of his words and walked barefoot all the way to Canterbury to show his remorse. Wow, that's dedication. This wasn't the end of Henry's troubles. life was taken up with fighting his own wife and sons. Poor Henry was deeply hurt when he discovered that his youngest and favourite son John had joined the rebellion against him. This last blow proved too much, and so Henry died of a broken heart at the age of only 56. Now that's questionable. I think he probably just died of stress. Just imagine your best friend going against you, then murdered because of your, innocent words. Then your wife and your own favourite son turning against you. I think that is stress-related death. Royal romance. Henry II's Queen, Eleanor of Aquitaine, was one of the most powerful and sophisticated women in medieval Europe. She'd already been married to and separated from the King of France by the time she married Henry, who was 9 years her junior. Both the king and queen had powerful personalities, and although they had 8 children together, Henry eventually fell deeply in love with a beautiful woman named Rosamund Clifford. This didn't please Eleanor one bit. No, it wouldn't please me either. She later became involved in her son's attempts to rebel against their father, and as a result, Henry imprisoned her for many years. That's not very fair, is it? I mean, you want to know with somebody else, and, well, a scorned woman is, not a good thing to deal with. I don't know how the expression goes, but don't make a woman mad, I think is the moral of that story. Thrown under threat. Henry II made the usual decision to have his eldest son, also Henry, crowned whilst he was still alive. Needless to say, having 2 King Henrys in the country was more than a little confusing, and it didn't go down well with the young king when his father wouldn't let him rule alone. Young Henry was the first of the old king's sons to rebel against their father, and although they made up, and the young king even fought on his father's behalf against rebellious son number 2, the young Henry died before his father. The remaining sons could not agree who should have which piece of land to manage, and so when Henry promised the Duke of Aquitaine to his youngest, the Duchy, of Aquitaine to his youngest son, John, Richard, later Richard I, was ready to fight. Joffrey joined in the squabbling, and finally so did John, leaving Henry surrounded by enemies of his own making. That is so confusing. There are too many sons going on here, and too many... Oh dear, poor Henry thought he was doing the right thing, but he really, really didn't. Alright, so let's view the painting of this chap. Very simple painting. We don't have any sort of embellishments on the bottom like we've seen before. The writing. Oh, poor man, he looks so stressed out, doesn't he? He looks so sad. He's got some nice curly hair and a beard that seems to kind of go into one. He does look very stressed out and very sad by life. He wears like a very modest sort of a cloak, gown, royal dress, I guess. So that is Henry II's portrait. So let's look now here on the timeline. 1133, Henry is born. 1154, Henry II, Kurt Mantle, succeeds to the throne, and here we have a little daily monarch. Henry II, Kurt Mantle, succeeds to the throne. At the Treaty of Westminster, Stephen and Henry II, son of Matilda, agreed terms for the ending the Civil War. Although Stephen was to remain king for the remainder of his life, the throne will then pass to Henry. son of Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine. Normally, you'd only have one king at a time, but Henry decided to do things differently. He had his 15-year-old son crowned while he was still on the throne. Kings needed kingdoms, however, and the young king, as he was known, didn't have one of his own. This led him to fight against his own father and his brother Richard, later Richard I the Lionheart. Fights he couldn't win, and he predeceased his father, dying at the age of just 28. So that's Henry the Young King. Then, in 1170, Thomas Becket is murdered. Thomas Becket is murdered. 4 knights stabbed the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Becket, to death in Canterbury Cathedral after misinterpreting a command from the king. Henry II may have been frustrated with his friend for taking the side of the church against the crown, but it is unlikely that he really wanted him dead. What a shame. Then in 1186, Henry II's son Joffrey is killed at a tournament. Let's see this. About Joffrey. Or Jeffrey. I can say Joffrey. 1156, 1186. The Duke of Brittany and Earl of Richmond, his official titles. The sons of Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine all seemed to be troublemakers by nature, and Joffrey was no different. Joffrey, I think it's Jeffrey. First, aged only 15, he joined a revolt against his dad. They made up again pretty quickly, but years later, Geoffrey joined his elder brother Henry, the Young King, which we just spoke about, in his fight against their older brother Richard, who will become Richard I the Lionheart, which you've probably recognise that name, Richard the Lionheart. Close friends with Philip II of France, Geoffrey may even have been planning another rebellion against his father when he suddenly died in Paris, aged 27. Philip was said to be so upset by his friend's death that he tried to jump inside Geoffrey's coffin. Oh my goodness. That's a bit much. Maybe they were lovers, who knows. So that's him dead. And in 1189, Henry dies. So we've seen these people here. Eleanor of Aquitaine we haven't read. Let's read quickly of Matilda. Matilda, Holy Roman Empress, 1102 to 1167. Matilda was the only legitimate child of Henry I to survive her father, and after the death of her brothers was named by him as heir to the throne. You remember about the death of her brothers there in previous videos. Before Matilda could get to the throne, however, her cousin Stephen had himself crowned. Matilda fought back fiercely, and 12 messy years of civil war followed. She never would be Queen of England, but her son became Henry II, first of the Plantagenet kings. Let's read a little bit about Eleanor of Aquitaine. Eleanor of Aquitaine, 1122 to 1204. Queen Eleanor. Beautiful and headstrong, Eleanor of Aquitaine grew up as the richest heiress in all of Europe. She was married twice, first to the King of France and then to the future Henry II. A shrewd lady, Eleanor helped to run Henry's massive empire, no mean feat for a medieval woman. However, when she fell out with her husband and decided to help her sons rebel against him, she found herself imprisoned. Eleanor was released from prison after Henry's death and again helped her boys in her own bids for power. She seems like a very headstrong woman, which I like. We've read about Henry the Young King. We'll move on to Richard the Lionheart, and we read about that's all the people we need to look at. So let's do the quiz and see how much we have remembered. How old was Henry II when he became king? Was it 21? Was it 35? Was it 9? Or was it 50? I'm gonna say 21. Correct. Henry II was 21 when he became king. Next question. Question 2 of 4. Who was Henry II's unlucky best friend? Was it Robert the Bruce? Was it Thomas Becket? Was it Oliver Cromwell? Or was it Thomas Cromwell? I'm going to say Thomas Becket. Correct. Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury, was Henry II's close friend. When the two men fell out, however, Becket ended up dead. But he was only doing the right thing, in my opinion. Not the king. Thomas Becket was doing the right thing about the church. Question 3 of 4. Henry had his 15-year-old son crowned whilst he was still on the throne. Is this false or is this true? I'm going to say true. Correct. Henry II had his eldest son, also called Henry, crowned king while he was still alive and ruling. Very strange. Question 4. How many children did Henry II have with his queen, Eleanor of Aquitaine? Was it 15? Was it 4? Was it 2? Or was it 8? I'm going to say 8 because that sticks out in my memory there. Correct. Henry and Eleanor had 8 children together, including the future kings Richard the Lionheart and John. You score, and we got 4 crowns out of 4. Hooray! Okay, so that is Henry II, and it didn't seem like his reign went very well for him, unfortunately. He made some pretty rubbish decisions and scorned his wife, which obviously led to a bit of disaster. So that's Henry II, and we'll be moving on in the next video to Richard the Lionheart, which I think he's quite a famous one as kings go. So thank you very much for listening, guys. I hope you found this to be relaxing